I was born in Oshawa in 1911, and I was born in my grandparents' home on the corner of Center Street and McGregor Street, which is now called McGregor. But at that time it was McGregor. I grew up there, and we lived there for quite a number of years. Everybody knew everybody else. It was a very nice neighborhood. For blocks around, we knew everybody. I went to school at Old Center Street School, which probably nobody remembers. It was torn down and the new school was built. But while the new school was being built, we were sent all over town to other schools. Eventually, they finished Ritson's school, which we considered was royal, practically. It was new, of course, and the nicest school in town, probably in the county. Well, it was a very different place at the time I was young, very different. But amazing enough, there were a lot of industries here, smaller ones, no General Motors. I think 1924, they declared it a city. And we weren't all very happy about that. The old Oshawans, it had grown too large. We were not used to that. And when I was young, of course, stores were not open on Sundays. Saturday night was the big night in Oshawa. Even the farmers came in Saturday night to shop. There were a lot of farmers in those days, so downtown Oshawa, for the four corners, for a block each way, would be crowded with people every Saturday night. One little strange thing that I remember was my brother didn't like going. He was the youngest of the three of us. So he managed to get himself a long hat pin, and when we would get crowded, he would use the hat pin on somebody until my father found out. And of course then he was in trouble. One thing I particularly remember when I was quite young, maybe about 10, a plane landed on the roof of the bank. And of course we all had to go and see it. And I remember being very young at that time, going to see the plane just hanging off the side of the bank at the top, off the roof. And that was quite a thing to happen in Oshawa. So I'm sure everybody in town went to see it. I remember when General Motors built their factory in Oshawa. Of course, that wasn't where it is now. It was all right in Oshawa. Of course, it was a number of years before they bought the farms where they are now, And I remember those farms. I remember the people, and I knew the people that lived on those farms. But, of course, General Motors, when they moved where they are, was quite a thing for Oshawa. And a lot of the smaller businesses, by this time, had given up. I left Oshawa because there was no kind of work in Oshawa to be had. That was during the Depression. I spent 5 years in Kingston. When I went there when I was about 19, I had taken a course. I had worked before that at the newspaper office, Oshawa paper, and I had worked there for a few years as a proofreader of the paper. I found I didn't want to do that for my life, so I decided to take a course in hairdressing, which I did. Eventually, a friend of mine and I operated a beauty parlor in Kingston for another 5 years. After that, I came back to Oshawa to get married. My husband was my school teacher. From both public school and high school. He was the principal, or the vice principal of the new school. At that time, I was in the final class, which we called then senior fourth. In 2 years, then I went to the high school. By that time, he was there. I met him there again. I was 38 when my husband died. I had 3 children. My husband died, they were ages 12, 10, and 6. And that was enough for me to do, to bring them up and educate them, or try to get them educated, which we did. I wouldn't allow anyone else to do that. No, they just grew up and we worked together and got them educated and on their own. They were good. They worked every summer, found summer jobs, and saved their money. And I'm thankful that those 3 are now retired, quite comfortably, I may say. After I left the newspaper, after my husband died, I was offered a job at at that time, our doctor's home. His office was in his home near the corner of Mary Street and King East. So I worked there for at least 4 years. After that, I worked at the hospital because they had built a new part of the hospital. And I went there as a receptionist. And while I was there, one of the doctors then requested me to go to work in his office, which I did. And I was there for another, perhaps 5 years. Eventually, I went back, worked at the hospital, and retired from there when I was 65 and 6 months. And that was my retirement. Not much of anything, actually. I'm not sure that I learned anything that I didn't already know. That just stick to your work, keep your head up, and carry on. I would say that a bit of hard work is good for anyone. Make your way the best you can, stick to it, and I think Oshawa has been a good place to live. I have liked it, and at the present I can't think of anywhere else I would rather have been brought up.